Hello. Today I'm going to read from a book called The Tin Drum, Gunter. It's always amazing to me how many different ways people can write about war and do so in their own unique, have their own unique approach to it. This book is completely different from any other book I've ever read. And they made a really good movie out of this book too. I can't remember who directed it, but it's German. Anyway, Gunter. Book 1, The Wide Skirt. Granted, I'm an inmate of a mental hospital. My keeper is watching me. He never lets me out of his sight. There's a peephole in the door, and my keeper's eye is the shade of brown that can never see through a blue-eyed type like me. So you see, my keeper can't be my enemy. I've come to be very fond of him. When he stops looking at me from behind the door and comes into the room, I tell him incidents from my life, so he can get to know me in spite of the peephole between us. He seems to treasure my stories because every time I tell him some fairy tale, he shows his gratitude by bringing out his latest knot construction. I wouldn't swear that he's an artist, but I am certain that an exhibition of his creations would be well received by the press and attract a few purchasers. He picks up common pieces of string in the patient's rooms after visiting hours, disentangles them and works them up into elaborate contorted spooks. Then he dips them in plaster, lets them harden, and mounts them on knitting needles that he fastens to little wooden pedestals. He often plays with the idea of coloring his works. I advise him against it, taking my white enamel bed as an example and bidding him to try to imagine how this most perfect of all beds would look if painted in many colors. He raises his hands in horror, tries to give his rather expressionless face an expression of extreme disgust, and abandons his polychrome projects. So you see, my white enameled metal hospital bed has become a norm and standard. To me, it is still more. My bed is a goal attained at last. It is my consolation and might become my faith if the management allowed me to make a few changes. I should like, for instance, to have the bars built up higher to prevent anyone from coming too close to me. Once a week, a visiting day breaks in on the stillness that I plate between the two metal bars. This is the time for the people who want to save me, whom it amuses to love me, who try to esteem and respect themselves, to get to know themselves through me. How blind, how nervous and ill-bred they are. They scratch the white enamel of my bedstand with their fingernail scissors. They scribble obscene little men on it with their ballpoint pens and blue pencils. No sooner has my lawyer blasted the room with his hello than he slaps his nylon hat down over the lower left-hand bedpost, an act of violence that shatters my peace of mind for the duration of his visit. And lawyers find a good deal to talk about. After my visitors have deposited their gifts beneath the watercolor of the anemones, and on the little white table covered with oilcloth, after they have submitted their current projects for my salvation and convinced me whom they are working indefatigably to save of the high quality of their charity, they recover their relish of their own existence and leave me. Then my keeper comes in to air the room and collect the strings from the gift packages. Often after airing he finds time to sit by my bed for a while, disentangling his strings and spreading silence until I call the silence Bruno and Bruno silence. Bruno Munsterberg, this time I mean my keeper, I've stopped playing with words, has bought me 500 sheets of writing paper. The Tin Drum, a very different and unique book by Gunter.